Good morning, and welcome to this event that we have online today. My name is Dalian Pretorius. I represent tax debt compliance, and we are extremely excited to be here with you today. We'd like to welcome you to this online event called Chartered Accountants and Accountants Stop Wasting Unbillable Hours on Your Clients Who Are in Trouble with SARS. So just a couple of house rules before we start. You are welcome to keep your video on. We are pinning Gerard's video and my video, so you won't be on the video. If you have any questions, please leave them till the end. We will be letting in individuals as the process moves forward. So I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker to you today, Gerard Linde. He holds a master's degree in taxation from the University of Pretoria. He's a chartered tax advisor. And what does it mean? A chartered tax advisor is a leading designation from the South African Institute of Taxation, and it's an internationally recognized and respected designation that's a mark of technical superiority and professionalism and integrity. Gerard is the Director of Tax Debt Compliance, and Tax Debt Compliance specializes in assisting businesses who are non-compliant with SARS, so who are behind on their SARS payments, to become fully compliant and fully up-to-date with SARS. The specialization in this area for tax debt compliance have been over the last 8 years, and tax debt compliance dealt in this time period with 200,500,000 rand in total in tax debt, and reduced that tax debt to only 50 million rand in total tax debt payments. So you can see it's a total tax debt reduction of 75%. And the biggest tax reduction that happened, realized for one client, was 97%. So tax debt compliance has a 100% success rate. None of the clients that put their trust in tax debt compliance have lost anything by owing tax, and tax debt compliance is compliant, very important, to South African taxation law and acts. And I will post a link in the chat box just now with more information on testimonials and from clients, just for you to have a bit of information on that. So without further ado, I'd like to jump into this conversation. Welcome if you just joined us, and start to ask Gerard a couple of questions, and we'll handle this as a question and answer base, and then please type your questions in the chat box and we'll definitely field them at the end. So welcome everyone again, and welcome Gerard. Thank you for being with us this morning. So Gerard, the first question I'd like to ask you is, why is it difficult for accountants and chartered accountants to work with SARS? What's your experience on that, please?
Good morning, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining. I realize some of you might still be busy with provisional taxes. The session won't be long. It's very informative, very quick. If you have some questions, like Dalian said, just pop it in. And as we kick off, the difficulty that we have seen is that accountants or the CIs, there's three categories we like to put them in terms of when it comes to SARS. Number one, they don't always have the knowledge. And number two, you don't always want to deal with them. And then number three, which I believe is probably the most important part, is you don't have the time, because most accountants they've got your deadlines that you need to meet, like today's provisional tax returns. There's no time to phone around, looking around for SARS's answers, and that probably determines, the bulk of why it's difficult to deal with them if it's not your core business per se.
Excellent. Thank you, Gerard. Really appreciate that. And I think you've all seen that in working with SARS. So on that basis, if you say chartered accountants and accountants or tax practitioners don't have knowledge and expertise, what do you think is lacking? You're an expert in this field.
The number one thing that stands out is experience. As all of you know, experience in a certain field gives you a bit more knowledge in terms of how to deal with things. You pick up things about the trade as you go. and then the expertise on dealing with certain matters and what you can ask for, knowing when your rights are, knowing when to push back when they tell you certain things. So the combination of both is really key when you look at reducing some taxes or making arrangements that are affordable. That's not necessarily agreeable by SARS, but you have to know your rights. So in those two aspects, I believe it's they pick up a lot of good things as you are involved in this industry for a longer period.
Thank you, Gerard. So in your experience, what's the perspective when you have worked with accountants, tax practitioners, chartered accountants? What's their perspective about them working with SARS? What do they believe is even possible?
When we've had some discussions with some clients and even some accountants, the one thing that comes over is that the accountants feel like you can't negotiate with SARS. So there's no room to say, this is what we can pay or this is what's on the table, which is obviously a starting point that's not correct. You're on the back foot all the time if you rely on them. And then basically what it relates to is that you ask, or the person's handling the case is asking SARS for a resolution. If you say to them, want to repay the money, you're going to ask, can we get terms? And then they will give you terms. And for us, that's the wrong way around. We would like to give them the terms and then let them agree upon the terms that we give them, so that the client's in a position that they can control and pay. If we do it the other way around, SARS not necessary. They just want the money that is owed to them, and they're going to give you terms, and it's not necessarily a way that you can, if you don't know your rights or what you can ask for, you're going to sign an agreement, and then if you lapse on it, you're in bad standing in any case, and you are behind again. So it's really important to get the first step right from the get-go.
Thanks, Gerard. So for these tax practitioners, for accountants, for chartered accountants, what are some of the solutions that are available for their clients, those clients who are non-compliant with SARS?
Whole collection process, so that's from the very start, from when your first phone call was received to your demands or your judgments or your third-party appointments. The solutions that's always available throughout the whole process would be your right to apply for a deferment, which is covered in Section 167 of the Admin Act, and then the compromise, which is then covered in Sections 200 to 205 in the Taxman Act. So between those two, you can structure a solution that the client can afford without SARS, continuing with their collection steps. So you can basically put a halt on it until you get it to a resolution.
Thank you, Gerard. And can you maybe share some of the latest success stories of tax debt compliance to showcase real examples of how tax debt compliance have helped clients to become compliant with SARS?
Sometimes best the day when we receive the good news that things are approved. I would like to invite you all just to visit our testimonial page. There are a lot of clients over the years that we've dealt with. We've got success stories on LinkedIn and Facebook, giving their stories, and also on our website. So there's a lot of things that you can look at in terms of who we've helped. But just jumping into a couple, they vary so much. We've assisted a farmer. They've had debt over 500,000. We gave them a settlement of 200. We had an electrical engineer. Basically, that company was standing still for a number of years. They couldn't trade. They owed about 950,000 rand. We got it down to 100. Then at your top echelons, we had a very senior advocate who owed SARS over 15 million. We negotiated, we structured a repayment. We got it down to 7 million. So there's a lot of, you can see it jumps from individual, basic everyday person to, top of the food chain in terms of services delivery. So there's no distinction between who's in trouble and who's not in trouble. For all of them, there should be some sort of solution, and not always guaranteed everyone's going to get a write-off of 90%, but at least there's an option for you to see, well, what is possible and what can we achieve.
Excellent, Gerard. Thank you so much. So I've just pasted in the chat box the link to the testimonial page, also the link to the tax deed compliance page. And here's an example. Just you can click on that link at the bottom to see the company profile and everything exactly of what tax deed compliance does. You're also welcome to connect on LinkedIn with Gerard with tax deed compliance. So let me stop here and just ask, is there any questions so far? Any questions around technical questions maybe that you want to ask, or any other questions in terms of a client that you're working with that's non-compliant with SARS? Let's just ask that. Okay, so while you're thinking about that, Gerard, how does the process work? So if tax deed compliance starts to work with these clients, so do they still stay the client of the tax practitioner, or what happens?
See ourselves as an extension of the service that you provide. So like we said at the very top, because there's various factors that cause you not to want to deal, or you don't have the time to deal with SARS. We would like to come in and offer that added value to your client to say, we don't offer the services that you do. Your client stays your client, and we would like to see, can we not add some value to the clients that you have in terms of getting them out of trouble, getting them right back on track, and then you continue with what you need to do with them on a monthly basis, yearly basis. So it's your client basically stays your client. We just like to see, can we just get this very big hurdle in some instances out the way?
Thank you, Gerard. And then what's the average period? How long does it take to solve a tax non-compliance problem with SARS?
The question, it's very difficult to answer. We're obviously dealing with SARS, which is a state-owned entity, and that on itself causes very much delays. And also, if you don't have the exact knowledge or expertise how to deal with them and making follow-ups, these things can drag on forever and ever. And then also coming back to what is the client's specific need. So everyone has a need, there needs to be a strategy to the need and how to solve it, and that will determine in most cases, what is the options that we are going for, how are we going to structure it, and that will determine, what's the period in terms of resolvement. So it's not very easy to say that, to give predictions. Some cases can be up to, very, very minimum 2 months maybe to get a very good result. Or if it drags longer and the case is a bit more intrinsic, we can look up to 6 months to a year. So it's just important in that time period to manage the issue. That's the only thing that matters in terms of, if you don't manage it correctly, then you're on the wrong side. So you always just want to be on the right side. So timing might not always be as important as managing it correctly.
Thank you, Gerard. I'd like to add another question, because we see it often with clients. So why should a client not be scared to work through a professional company like tax deed compliance that's a specialist in understanding how to take them from being non-compliance to compliance? Why should they not be scared?
At the very start, you're dealing with someone who's been doing this for a very long time. So that means that the options that are available to you, the solutions that are available. There's a couple of strategies that can be followed in terms of what is the need of the company or individual at that point in time. So it very much has to cater for where you are now and where we want to go to. And that all goes with planning and dealing with someone who's actually been doing this for, like you said, 7 or 8 years already. So that helps you in terms of giving you that little bit of peace of mind that you're on good hands, at least taking the burden of SARS away from you and just putting someone in the middle. I think people enjoy that quite a lot. They don't want to deal with SARS directly as much. It feels like there is someone in between you and them, because when they phone you, there's certain things you don't know what to say, the way that they phone you and some tones that they use, it just depends on the persons. But at least someone taking that shield for you at the front, it makes a huge difference, because then you can go and continue what you're good at, trying to get the business back on track, trying to get things going instead of worrying about your part of this issue with SARS. And so a lot of people, you know, when they talk to us, they say they can't sleep or they can't eat or anything like that because SARS is always in the back of their minds. Trying to take that away so that they can focus on what they need to focus on, so which is obviously growing a company and turning it around. Otherwise, your focus is to split, and that means that you can't do what you normally do.
Gerard, I think today trust is one of the things that are so incredibly important. And we've heard so many stories when money is involved of corruption, of illegal dealings, etc. Why should someone be able to trust tax debt compliance?
Good question. There's a lot of underhanded things happening. We do all things by the book, very legal. We use the Tax Admin Act to use the rights that we've been given. And then clients very aware of their responsibilities and what they need to do. So, you know, there's agreements that get sent. You need to make sure that you sign an agreement or you see an agreement. You don't ever, one of the biggest mistakes, and until today people still do it, they pay their accountant, if you want to put it like that, or the person handling it, and then they said they will sort it out at the back end, which is very red flag from the start. You know, you need to go back and say, if there is a payment and there is a payment agreement, that things needs to happen directly to SARS with SARS reference numbers. So there's a whole lot of checkpoints that you have, that we have for you, and that you have to have for yourself. If there's no SARS agreement that you signed, you know, then you can't rely on it. If there's no certain reference numbers that you pay directly to SARS without intervention, so we're never handling your money. That's also something, a red flag for you to help on. So very good question as well. We get that a lot. So people are very ignorant when it comes to SARS, which is very wrong. You need to take control of your issues. You can't delegate it to someone and then think it goes away. You still have a responsibility as a director or member of a company or CC. You do employ professionals to help, but it still comes back to you. You can't just say we parked it to the accountant because we don't know what's going on in finances. Unfortunately, Act's not written that way. You still need to make sure that you are aware of things. Not necessarily know exactly how they work, but you have to be aware, which is a key point because you have to take you know, that responsibility onto yourself as well.
Thank you, Gerard. There's a question, does your company focus to help accountants to help their clients with SARS, or do you focus on clients themselves?
100% sure I understand the question 100%, but if you are an accountant and you have clients who's in trouble, we try to come in and help your client get out of trouble with SARS. So you still continue doing normal, you know, VAT submissions, pay your earns, management accounts and financials and all the things that goes together with being an accountant for that person. So taking care of their needs. We're just doing we're trying to see, can we build a relationship with you to see if you can trust that what we do will take care of your client, that if there is someone that comes across your table who's in trouble, that you know, okay, at least there is a solution if you don't offer that solution per se.
Thank you. If you can type in the chat box if your question is answered, that'll be fantastic. Thank you. Another question, what's the cost structure? How does that process work?
First, cost structure where we manage the data source, so that will be communicated to the client. So it will depend on the size of the debt. Once that is established, and what we need to do, we'll give the structure back to the client. So to manage the fee and to manage the process with SARS is going to cost you X amount, and that client has an agreement with us in terms of what it will cost. So it's a full-on fee. It's not time based. So it will be issue related. Case by case, and then the client will know exactly what he's paying upfront. So you'll have all the terms, so there won't be any hidden things. Everything will be agreed upon upfront to continue on to the process.
Is there really a benefit to work through a specialized company like tax debt compliance, or can I just go and study the laws related to being behind with tax and jump in and help my client? And if there's a benefit, what is the benefit?
Covered very early in the stream is that it's the act is there for everyone to read, and anyone can make use of the compromise or deferment. It's basically the knowledge and the know-how to get the best result. That's the key ingredient that's missing. So if you don't know exactly how to ask or what are you aiming for, you're going to be a bit, clutching at straws and hoping for the best. So what we found is obviously why this is such a niche field is because of that stats that you've just given at the top of the stream. It's big reductions if you can motivate it correctly and you can make use of the act correctly. So there is a fine balance between the two. It's not just as easy as reading the act, doing an application, and that's finished, because there is very much human interaction needed in terms of analyzing the position and then making sense, turning that into a valid offer that is acceptable to SARS.
Thank you, Gerard. And let me just ask in closing, is there any more questions from anyone? I think everyone's keen to get back to their tax submissions as well, it being the last day of the financial year for many companies. Okay, if there's no questions coming through, if you want to book a one-to-one discussion with Gerard, then please do so. I will pop the details, email address into the chat right now. You can do that. There again is the company profile for you to see, but you can book a one-to-one meeting with him. You can simply email Linda at taxdc.co.za. You can also go onto the website, taxdc.co.za. I'm also pasting that right here. And right at the top is the telephone number where you can reach Gerard. You're welcome to book a meeting with him online or via like a face-to-face meeting, just to see and ask more questions that you maybe didn't want to ask today. So Gerard, there's no more questions. Thank you everyone for joining us for this short, very important discussion, and especially today being the day that it is, I believe that there will be more clients where you will see that there's problems, understand, and pressure coming through, and potentially more people that you can help to keep their doors open and to make sure that their businesses can continue, and something we very much need right now in the economy. Gerard, thank you so much for your time. Everyone else, thank you so much for being here. And we will also send a recording of the full webinar for those of you who came in a bit late today. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.